right, hi everyone. This is the practice quiz that you should have finished either in class yesterday or for homework. So you are going to take notes with me at the same time and make sure that your work matches my work. If you don't have the work, this is the time to make sure you copy it down. If you have something wrong, I want you to fix it. This is going to be turned in with your quiz. And then you will also have a great resource to use on your quiz. So this first one, we're finding the missing length of the triangle. So we know that across here is our C. It tells us also, but if we weren't sure, across from our right angle, we are looking to find the hypotenuse. That's the longest side. So our formula, if you remember, is a squared, which a is just a leg or a side, plus b squared. Again, b is just a side. A and b don't matter whether you mix them up or not. But then equals c squared. So c is the longest side, and it's always directly across from that right angle, that box. So this first one is pretty easy because we have 8 squared plus 6 squared. And again, it wouldn't have mattered if you wrote 6 squared plus 8 squared. Equals, again, we don't know what c is. That's the longest side, c squared. So when I do this work, I allow you to put this all in your calculator. So 8 squared plus 6 squared is 100. So 100 equals c squared. And so now we have to actually solve this. So if you recall, sometimes they have you flip it around so it looks like c squared equals 100. So then we're seeing it the way we're used to solving. So then we just go back to, we draw our line in. How do I undo that squared? I take the square root of both sides. They cancel here, and c would equal 10. So that would be 10 feet. And I write it with my label. Okay? Looking at the next one. So we know that one of these, that this must be our A, because it's a side. We don't know the other side, and we automatically know this is our C, even if the letters didn't match up and we had to figure it out. Because this is across from the right angle, that's our C. So we're going to plug in 5 squared plus b squared, and it wouldn't matter if we flip these around, equals 13 squared. So this is where we have to do a little bit of solving, and then we get 5 squared, so we get 25 plus b squared equals, and then when we plug in 13 squared into our calculator, we get 169. And then again, sometimes we rearrange it so it looks better to us, but I'm going to go ahead and just do it in the way that it is. We draw in the line. This is a 2-step equation. So when it's 2 steps, we have that extra step. We need to get rid of the addition or subtraction first. So 25 is positive, so we do minus 25 on both sides. It cancels where the variable is at, and we're left with b squared equals, and then 169 minus 25, when you put that in your calculator, you should get 144. I'm just drawing in the line so we can see. And then the last part, when we go to solve it, b squared, how do I get rid of b squared? So I'm going back again. I do my square root. They undo each other. I do my square root. So the square root of 144 ends up being 12. And then I need to look at my labels. So it's 12 centimeters. That's my answer. Okay? So make sure if you need help, if you need to pause this to copy down the work or look at yours, you can let the teacher know. Also, you should have some of this done, so if you did make a little mistake, you just know where you made it. All right, I'm scrolling down and doing ones that are very similar here. So I know this across here is my C because it's across from the right angle. On the quiz, it's not going to tell you your A or your B or your C. You have to know where they're at, but it's doing it on this practice quiz just so it was a little bit easier. So we know A squared plus B squared. Well, we know B is 2.1 squared equals 2.9 squared. This is where we have to now do some work in our calculators. Okay, so if we go ahead and square on this side, we'd be left with a squared plus, and then this is going to give us 4.41 because we have to work that out. And then we have to do 2.9 squared, which is 8.41. So when I put it in my calculator, I'm just putting the line to separate my work. And then we now have a two-step equation, just like the other one we did. So my next step here is then I have to get rid of addition or subtraction first. So I'm going to subtract 4.41 from both sides. I do the opposite. So these cancel out, and I'm left with a squared equals, and then in your calculator, 8.41 minus 4.41. So then that would give you just 4. It actually comes out to a whole number. We're not done because I don't want to know what a squared is. So again, our last step when it's squared with Pythagoras theorem, we do the square root on both sides, cancels out, and I get a equals, and then the square root of 4 is actually 2. So I want to make sure when I write my answer, it's 2, and I look at my labels, it's going to be M. That's my answer. All right, so I did 3 of them where you set it up. I'm actually just hope you should have this one done yourself. And I'm just going to look at your work on this one. So we did the first 3. They're all kind of the same. So we need to make sure that we have the correct work for these. Now we're going to look at a story problem. And remember, every story problem we're going to set up with a triangle. So it says a small shelf sits on 2 braces that are in the shape of a triangle. Okay, so we have a triangle. Oops, that doesn't look quite like a right triangle. Okay, and it says the brace attached to the wall, so the wall could be here. We would say the leg holding the shelf in place is, this one to the wall is 4.5. We know that's a leg. We know that's the right angle because I just put it in. So remember I taught you, we just always just draw the triangle and then try to figure it out from there. So one of the legs, and it tells us a leg is either A or B, is 4.5. And then it says, and the hypotenuse is 7.5. So that tells us actually our C. It says, what is the length? What is the width of the shelf? So that means we just need to find a missing, I'm going to call it X this time, because we need to know which one it is. So it gave us the hypotenuse, so that's our C. It gave us one of the legs, so it doesn't matter whether you call it A or B. So I'm just going to write it like this. X squared, our unknown first, plus one of the legs that we know, squared, and then that's going to equal our hypotenuse, or our C, squared. So then this is where we're going to do the work. I'm going to draw in my line, and I have to put this in my calculator. So 4.5 squared is, we get the x squared down here, plus it's 20.25. Okay, equals, and then we have to do the 7.5 squared, which is 56.25. So now that I've done that work, now I can start solving. So I'm going to look at, next, get rid of addition or subtraction first. So I'm going to subtract the 20.25 from both sides. It cancels over here, and I'm left with x squared equals 36. And then again, to undo and get my final answer, I don't want x squared, so I take the square root to undo it, and I take the square root. So x would equal, and then my final answer, I just want to make sure, is 6, and then it matches, we have inches. So that would be for our story problem. Okay, go ahead and flip your practice quiz over, and we're going to do the next part. This is what we call the converse, which is we're just proving if it's a right triangle or not. So looking at this, we're going to take a guess. Automatically, we know our biggest number is our C, and then we are just going to plug numbers in. Let's just pretend that's A and B. We always find the C first because we know it's the biggest number. It has to be. And then we just plug these in and see if they are equal. So 7 squared plus 20 squared. So I took both those sides. Does that equal 25 squared? So we're going to go ahead and do the work in our calculator. When you just put in all of this, the 7 squared plus 20 squared, I get 449. And then when you put in 25 squared, I get 625. These are not equal, which means no, it's not a right triangle. So the answer is no. Let's look at the next one. So again, we automatically know this has to be our C because it's our biggest number. So we are going to set this up as one of these is the A, one is the B. I always go with the shorter side being A, but it does not matter. So 10 squared plus 24 squared, those are the two sides, equal the longest side squared. And then again, I'm going to do the work in my calculator. When I enter all of this in on the one side, I get 676 equals, and then 26 squared, I enter that in, and I actually get 676. So they are equal, so that means yes, it's true, it's a right triangle. So I can go ahead and then put in the right angle there. Okay, let's look at the next one, finding the distance from 2 points. So the first thing we need to do is plot the points. So we have 2, -4, so I go over 2 and down to 4. I'm going to move this down so we can see it a little bit better. And then 3, -1. So I go over 3 and 1, 2, 3, and down to -1. So that's what it wants me to find the distance between the two. We can't count. So what I'm going to do is make a triangle. So I know this one, I'm going to go straight down and over. And those are my side lengths. So 1, 2, I know this is 3, and this is 1. And then what we're looking for then is our hypotenuse. This is our C. So I'm going to do the work. 3 squared plus 1 squared equals C squared. So again, 3 squared plus 1 squared, our answer would actually be 10 equals C squared. And then our last part is solving. So if you want to flip it, feel free, so that the C squared equals 10, so it looks like that. We're familiar with solving that, but also we're getting good at doing it either way. So again, all we would do is take the square root to undo it, and then the square root of 10, the square root of 10. So our exact answer is the square root of 10. The answer with the decimal, if you were to put it in your calculator, square root of 10 is about 3.2. So remember, we want both answers. I want the exact and then I want the approximate. So the exact means keep it as a square root, and the approximate means we are going to just multiply it out, square root. Okay, and our last one, again, we have ordered pairs, so I have to put them on here. So I go to 3, 2, and I'm right here, and then 7, 5, so I'm here. So again, we have to draw the triangle in. So I can just, it does not matter, but I drop it down and then I go over. And then the distance it wants to know, again, the distance we're finding is the C. We can count the two sides. So this side is actually 3 and this one is 4. So we know that we have, I'm going to write down here, we have 4 squared plus 3 squared equals C squared. So we're going to type all that in our calculator, which gets me 25 equals C squared. And then my last step is I find the square root. I find the square root. So that distance is either the square root of 25, or we can say 5, because the square root of 25 is 5. So exact answers. Okay, so good luck on your quiz. Make sure this is filled out as well, because I'm collecting it. Use this as notes and any of the other note sheets you want. So now would be the time. We're going to get everything ready and ready to take our quiz.